Okay. So we can share this to our colleagues as well who may miss something. And also later on, when the presentations will start, feel free to type in your questions in the chat box because later, after all the three presentations of our speakers, we will have a generous 20-minute question and answer for all of them. So our speakers, we have three speakers for this afternoon coming from various organizations who will give information and shed light about the modern slavery situation in the Philippines. And without further ado, let us officially begin. So I am delighted to introduce Mr. Kuldeep Chauhan, Free the Slaves Asia Director, to officially welcome us all and give the overview of the webinar. Kuldeep?
Thank you so much, Romsey. Good afternoon to all attendees, esteemed speakers, and participants joining us from across the Philippines and beyond. On behalf of Free the Slaves, I extend a warm welcome to all of you for this webinar. So, today's discussion is both timely and crucial as we confront the persistent issue of modern slavery in the Philippines. To introduce our organization, Free the Slaves, we are an international non government organization dedicated to eradicating modern slavery and human trafficking. Since our inception in the year 2000, FTS has been at the forefront of global anti-slavery movement, working to liberate those trapped in exploitation, empower survivors, and strengthen systems that prevent slavery from taking root. Our head office is in Washington, D.C., and we operate across Africa, Asia, Latin America, Caribbean, and the Middle East. Free the Slaves partners with grassroots organizations, governments, and other stakeholders to address the root causes of slavery. Our holistic approach emphasizes community empowerment, survivor leadership, and sustainable solutions that dismantle trafficking networks and protect vulnerable populations. In Philippines, we started our efforts in the year 2020 as we all have witnessed the increase of vulnerability of many people during the pandemic. We have worked with various community-based organizations to do capacity building programs to continue equipping Filipino frontliners of anti-human trafficking work. In 2022, we partnered with an organization called JPIC IDC and conducted pioneering research to understand the connection of climate change and its impact on human trafficking. The result of this research has been shared to various agencies and stakeholders that indeed vulnerability of community increases when disasters hit. And this year, we have officially registered Free the Slaves as FTS Philippines INC. FTS stands for Free the Slaves in the Philippines, serving as a hub of the region, Southeast Asia region. We believe that this will allow us to deepen work in the region, wherein both challenges and opportunities are present for the rest of the world to learn. So, with this webinar today, this is one of our initiatives to provide various stakeholders with access to information on key points to understand human trafficking in a particular country. Since last year, we have launched fact sheets on modern slavery for Nepal, Bangladesh, Malaysia, and Cambodia, and now today for the Philippines. We partnered with Balaod Mindanao, our esteemed partner in Philippines, to develop material that will provide a quick guide with links to resources to anyone who wants to understand the modern slavery situation in the Philippines. Towards the end of the webinar, we will share with you the fact sheet that we have developed with the help of Mr. Ritz Lee Santos of Balaod Mindanao, who's here with us today as a esteemed speaker. Today's event aims to foster dialogue, raise awareness, and inspire actionable change. We are thankful that we are joined by experts in the Philippines to give us a whole picture of the landscape of modern slavery in the country. Mr. Eugenio Gonzalez, Dr. Marcelina Carpizo, and Attorney Christine. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. To all of you in this webinar, Thank you for being here to amplify our collective efforts. We look forward to your participation in today's discussions. Thank you very much. Over to you, Romsey.
Thank you very much, Kuldeep, and for that overview of our webinar this afternoon. And thank you for also recognizing our partners for making this happen. So to proceed with our presentations, allow me to encourage everyone to listen to our speakers who have dedicated their lives to fight modern slavery in the country. And during the presentations, please feel free to ask questions, pasting it in the chat box. I know everyone should be familiar. And all of your questions will be entertained later after all the presenters have shared their presentations. And each presenter will be given 15 minutes. So I think everyone is excited to hear our first speaker. So to introduce, Dr. Marcelina G. Carpizo is a dedicated social worker and academic renowned for her unwavering commitment to combating child trafficking in the Philippines. Currently, she is a professor at the College of Social Work and Community Development at Western Mindanao University. Her career has been marked by a tireless pursuit of justice and protection for vulnerable children. She was a former director of the Peace and Human Security Institute at the same university for 13 years. Her leadership extended beyond academia, as she served as the chairperson of the Philippines Against Child Trafficking, or PACT, National Council from August 2007 to 2013, and again from 2019 to June 2024. She currently serves as president of the Philippine Association of Social Workers at Zamboanga chapter and is a member of the Regional Interagency Council Against Trafficking in the Philippines. And today she will talk about children and human trafficking in the Philippines and share the best practices of their organization. Dr. Carpizo, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sir Romsey. Good afternoon to each and everyone, and good morning to other participants who are coming from other parts of the country. Allow me to share to you my presentation. Okay, can you see my presentation?
Yes, Doc.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm from Zamboanga City, the western Mindanao part of the Philippines, and allow me to share to you our journey in the fight against human trafficking in Mindanao, Philippines. So to give you a little background of the human trafficking situation in our country, so as you can see on the slides, when you talk about online sexual exploitation of children, so a matter of from 2020, there was a sudden increase of reported cases. As you can see, 2022, there was a 1.2 million cyber thief reported in our country. And then then was increased in 2021. So if you can see March 1, a matter of 3 months, the Department of Justice reported 200 to 605 cases of online sexual uh, exploitation of children, or there was a sudden increase of 265. And then now for the victims also, if you try to look into, this is based on the researches conducted by the PNP, the Philippine National Police, the Women, Children, and Protection Desk. The median age of those OSAIC victims is 11-year-old. And 51% of those who were victims or survivors of OSAIC are 12 years old or younger. And we were so desperate because 23% of those victims of OSAIC are those aged 3 years old. And as you can see, there was even a 1-month-old victim of OSAIC. To move forward, so this is the latest statistics. This is from Mindanao. We in Mindanao, I would like to emphasize that we have the Mindanao Field Unit of the Philippine National Police, particularly of the Women and Children Protection Center. So for the month of July, so far in Region 9, where Zamboanga City is located, we have 5 rescued victims of OSAIC. And then for August, there is one victim of a psych, and the rest of the regions in the Philippines, as you can see, the highest is Region 10, 19 osaic victims, and Region 11, 2, so on and so forth. So more or less, for the month of August, there were 27 osaic victims in the Philippines. And then for September, in Region 9, we have another one so far. This is the latest one. So because of this is not only about OSAE cases in the Philippines, particularly in Mindanao. Now we have actually rendered cases of traditional cases of human trafficking also. So because of the problem of human trafficking, both the traditional as well as the online sexual exploitation and abuse of children, then Katilingban sa Kalambuan Incorporated, this is an NGO, responded to the demand of our environment, our community. So a little background, Katilingban was founded by Father Angel Calvo way back in 1995. And this is a non-profit organization helping poor and marginalized communities, no, in Zamboanga City and even in the nearby municipalities and island provinces of Zamboanga City. And Tanglao Buhay Shelter is the response of Katilingban to to the increasing number of children who were victims of human trafficking. And ang Buhay Shelter is the response or came out of advocacy campaign that we did in the different barangays in Zamboanga City. And before we have a problem because way back 2020, 2000 or earlier, we have already cases of human trafficking and we don't have any places where to put them. Of course, we have different shelters here in Zamboanga City, but these are shelter not exclusively for trafficked children. So Tanglao Buhay Shelter, if I may, this is a DSWD accredited, a residential-based facility exclusively for girls who are victims and survivors of human trafficking, not only in Zamboanga City, but even in nearby barangays, nearby island provinces, and even the cases in Luzon and Visayas were referred to us. And Katilingban is 16 years old now, founded way back 2000, 2008. And this is the only shelter exclusively found in Mindanao that caters such cases. Now, the shelter provides program and services. As you can see on the screen, we do provide a 24-hour safe and secure shelter. As you can see on the photo, that is the shelter, a two-story shelter for the victim and survivors of human trafficking. We do provide also psychosocial intervention, legal assistance, as well as educational services for those children who wanted to pursue their studies. We do also provide livelihood programs for older children who decided not to pursue with their formal schooling, and as well as to the parents of those children who were survivors of human trafficking. Part of our program and services is also the community and family reintegration services, advocacy and social mobilization, as well external coordination and networking. Allow me to share some of our photo documentation. So we have the psychosocial intervention. We have our own mental health workers and the one who is facilitating the psychosocial support needed by our children in the center. On the middle, as you can see at the picture at the middle, is our social worker doing an individual counseling with one of our survivors of human trafficking. And on the right side, you will find that this is an empowerment and enrichment session and an enrichment session with our children because we ensure that children in the center will acquire life skills before they will be finally reintegrated or returned to their families. Moving forward, for those children who decided to file a case against their perpetrators, we do conduct case consultation and case handling. And then we do monitor cases of trafficking filed in in the Department of Justice or Family Court. And at the middle, you can see this is our fiscal now, Judge Elizario, already doing an awareness, court awareness session because some of our children who wanted to file a case are afraid to do so. One is because of the habit, the one that is being worn by the judge. They said there is a witch inside the court and they are so afraid to go there. So that's why they are provided with an opportunities to visit the court and really see the witness stand and the courtroom. So that by the time they will be decided to file a case, they are more comfortable. To move forward, for as I mentioned a while ago, that there were children who decided to continue their schooling. So far, we do provide scholarship to those children from elementary to college. So as you can see, we do provide educational support. There are some tutorial conducted by our elder survivors of human trafficking, and some of the children who got being recognized academically for being perform for their performance well in the schools. And our social workers are also doing monitoring, talking to the class advisors to ensure that the child is safe, our children are safe, and they're doing well in their academic performances and even in the extracurricular activities. So far, we have already 5 to 6 who graduated in college. One of them are already working in Manila, and three of them are already with us working at Katlimban sa Kalambuan. So they are part of the admin, and one of them is working as our house parent. Now, on the livelihood program, these are the parents, the parents of those survivors of human trafficking, because we ensure that before we will return them back to their families, the economically, the parents or the family of the children are already stable. Because one of the many reasons why they were trafficked or were deceived is because of poverty, although that's just one of the many reasons, of course. So we have to capacitate them economically, and not only that, we connect with TESTA, with the Department of Social Welfare and Development, and also Katilingban also do provide uh, a seed fund, a startup capital, so that after the training, they will be able to already start with their own livelihood. And by doing so, their children will no longer be forced to work or will be forced to go away or maybe work outside their barangay or their vicinity. So another part of our program and services is the community and family reintegration services. I know you will agree with me that staying in the center is the last recourse. However, there are cases of children in our shelter. Definitely, we cannot really return them back to their families or barangay. For one reason is because their family, their parents are the perpetrators. Or maybe the perpetrators are just within their vicinity, and the families of the perpetrators are running after our children. That's why we have really to provide them a safe and secure place, and this is through the shelter. Although it was very clear to everyone, to the children and the families, that eventually the perpetrators are already behind bars, if they're already safe. So we do community and family reintegration services, wherein we have to really do a family and community risk and needs assessment. And what for? Because before returning back, the recovered child or children, we wanted to ensure that the child or the family, shall I say, are already not only ready as a parent, but economically, psychologically, in all aspects, they are now ready to provide what is needed by their children. So these are just some of our photo documentation done by our social workers when they conduct family tracing, family risk and needs assessment, and the planning of reintegration process. And also we work with parents before reintegrating them, which see to it that they do attend a parent effectiveness services, because we wanted the parents not only to be ready, as I mentioned, financially, but as a parent, being a responsible parent. So this is some of the photos. These are parents wherein they have really to learn about responsible parenthood. And then other sessions also were conducted on how to combat online sexual exploitation of children. And this is empowering parents on digital, because we know nowadays not all parents are, literate in terms of computer technology. And this is where now they cannot supervise their own children. So we have to empower them so that they can also supervise their children when their children are using their cell phone or even their laptops. So that's how our center-based services. No, Katilingban sa Kalambuan, particularly ang Buhay Shelter, also work with the local government unit and the regional interagency council against trafficking, as well as the barangay and the schools, because we completely believe we cannot do it alone. We need partnership, we need stakeholders, and we need to work, and we need to go down to the grassroots level and where the children are located and where the parents are. So we need really to provide a safe environment, because we know very well that it takes a village to protect or provide a safe environment for everyone. So these are some of our engagement with the LGU. So as you can see on the photos, we visited, we dealt, we coordinated with the director of the Department of Interior and Local Government, Zamboanga City, because we have 98 barangays in Zamboanga City. So when we do coordinate with the Department of Interior, Local and Government, it's more easier for us to work closely with the different barangays, because the barangays, or shall I say the villages, are under the Department of Interior, Local Government. We also work with our law enforcers, the Women and Children Protection Center, and also DES, because they are our partners in the rescue operations. And we also do work with our Coast Guard, because Zamboanga City is surrounded with a lot of wharves. There are actually 88 wharves and only 66, if I, yeah, 66 wharves, private wharves, are not being licensed, are not being recognized. So this is where now traffickers make use of the wharves entering Sabah, Malaysia, because Zamboanga City is a center, is considered as a transit place going to Sabah, Malaysia, and other countries in the world, as well as we are also a receiving place in Zamboanga City.
Doc Marcy,
Okay.
you have 1 minute for your presentation.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so as
Okay.
you can see, we have here also coordinate with the Vice Mayor, working also the distribution of IUC materials, okay, at the airport, at the bus terminal, and also here, we are also signing what's a memorandum of agreement with the ILG and also with the city ordinances on the private wards. And these are just some of the photo documentation at Lingman is an active member of the LCAT Bauzi. And then also we are also a member of the YACAT. We capacitate our police officers to be child-friendly when they do rescue operation as well as investigations. And these are just some of the photo documentation we're in. We closely work together to do case conference, case consultation on rescued victims, so that the decision will not be coming only from one agency, but for many. And these are also one of our case conference. Before the rescue operation, we need to plan well so that we'll be able to entrap the trafficker and rescue the children. And of course, these are some of our barangays. We do organize the paralegal volunteers. So far, we have already 40 barangays engaged, and each of the barangays are capacitated on how to be a paralegal volunteers. And they have really, and apart from that, we are also working with the schools, because a lot of the victims and vulnerable sectors are in the school. So we need to capacitate with them. We work with them and then have a memorandum of understanding. This is one of our advocacy with the school. And of course, every year we do celebrate two important events. The National Children's Month stakeholders' participation, and the word Day Against Human Trafficking, as you can see at the background. And I think and then we do have also radio advocacy campaign because a lot of people really needs to be reached. And of course, this is the last slide. In Zamboanga City, we have already formally organized a paralegal volunteers network composed of 40 barangays, more members of the paralegals, and is now being accredited by our Sangguniang Tambay, Panglungsod. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias,
Oh, I
Dr.
see.
Artiso, for that presentation. So we have here a comment, that excellent presentation with lots of evidence based on research. Again, thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
Dr.
much.
P. We have
Thank you
gathered
so
one
much.
question for you, but we'll ask you to answer it later after all the presentations. So let's again, everyone, join me in saying thank you to Doc Marcy Carpizo. So our next speaker is an industrial engineer with more than 35 years of experience in development work in fields of strategic planning, project development and management, grant making, institutional development, and policy analysis as a project team leader, consultant trainer, and executive officer. At present, Sir Eugene, he is the chief of party of the Strength CTIP project funded by USAID Philippines under a cooperative agreement with the Partnership for Development Assistance in the Philippines, or PDAP. The goal of the project is to strengthen local systems and partnerships for more effective and sustainable counter-trafficking in persons in the Philippines. Today, he will share about their experiences and about the project and how important multi-stakeholder efforts in the Philippines to fight human trafficking. Everyone, Mr. Eugenio Gonzalez. Sir Eugene, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Romsey. Good day to everyone, and good evening for some of us. Thank you for this opportunity to share our thoughts on the topic of multi-stakeholder efforts to fight human trafficking in the Philippines. Just an official disclaimer on this presentation. There are many forms of and dimensions of human trafficking, and uniquely in the Philippines, there is one law. In fact, there is another law that strengthens that one law, covering all forms of human trafficking. In other countries, there are different laws covering human trafficking, and that presents some difficulties which we can discuss in another venue. But generally, all of these, as Pope Francis called them, all of these are crimes against humanity. In terms of the situation, our country has been in Tier 1 ranking in the US State Department TIP report since 2016. But of course, much still needs to be done, especially at the local and community level. By the way, for everyone, for those who are not familiar with the tier ranking in the TIP report, when you're in Tier 1, that means that the country is doing enough, not doing enough, is doing concerted efforts that deserve some incentives, and that is the situation here. In fact, our project is funded through the JTIP fund of the U.S. State Department. But of course, much still needs to be done. In terms of some figures, I think Doc Marcy already shared a bit of this. Between 2019 and 2023, the number of reports from the NCMEC, U.S. National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, more than tripled. No? Those coming from the Philippines, the reports coming from the Philippines, more than tripled from 800,000 to 2.774 million. And in 2023, 2.33 million overseas Filipino workers were deployed the highest ever in 55 years of sending migrant workers. 2.33 million. If you multiply that by the number of family members, we basically have more than 10 million Filipinos, or almost 10% of our population, dependent directly, directly dependent on migrant workers working abroad. Just to illustrate some risk factors on the major forms of human trafficking in the country, labor trafficking being one of them. Migration is normal in the Philippines, given that we have 7,100 islands. So even when I was a kid, I was a child, I always met people who came from different islands in the country. They usually migrate to the urban centers like Metro Manila, Cebu, and Davao. So migration is normal. And beyond that, beyond Filipinos normally migrating domestically, there is a Filipino preference to work abroad. And this gives rise to a higher risk of what we call our overseas Filipino workers, OFWs. And the risk is higher, especially for those who are called irregular, undocumented, or those who went through channels that are not official in migrating to jobs abroad. In fact, the Philippines, no, the word Philippines was mentioned 97 times in the 2022 TIP report. While some of these were about efforts exerted by the government and NGOs to address TIP, most were in reference to the country as a source of trafficked persons. So all over the world, you can find almost in every country, you can find a Filipino working there. In terms of OSAEC, another major form of trafficking in the country, I think I already mentioned to you the numbers of NICMEC. There is another sad point here, and that is in more than half of OSAEC cases filed in court, family members are the facilitators of the crime. In fact, there was an International Justice Mission report that put the figure close to 70 to 80% of the cases being facilitated by family members. That is a huge challenge, and it is a very high risk. If your family member is the main perpetrator, then the child is definitely at more than 50% at risk. Fortunately, we had an anti-OSAIC law, specifically anti-OSAIC law. Although it is already covered, although OSAIC is already covered by the anti-human trafficking law, there was a specific law passed in 2022, RA 11930, to address this major problem. Just to give you on the background, the latest law is the third law to address human trafficking in the country since 2003. Basically because the modes of trafficking have changed dramatically since 2003. In 2003, there was no Facebook. Now you have Facebook and all the forms of social media being the main modes of human trafficking. In the early 2000s, or even in the previous century, previous millennium for that matter, it was face-to-face. Trafficking was face-to-face. The recruitment, the exploitation was face-to-face. But now it is done online. So the law has to adjust to that dramatic change in the modes of trafficking in persons. In addition, the law requires enactment of local ordinances on human trafficking. So aside from a national law, local governments are required to enact local ordinances to address prevention, protection, and prosecution of perpetrators. No? The resources, because we are a highly devolved, we have a highly devolved local governance, national governance system. Local governments have resources that can be used to address problems, including the problem of human trafficking. In fact, migrant advisory information networks are required at the provincial, city, and municipal levels. You might say that the law, there is an interagency council against trafficking composed of several government departments that is replicated at the regional, provincial, municipal, and municipal levels. So you have multi-levels that require a multi-sectoral body and therefore a multi-sectoral approach to handle cases. In our experience, TIP does require a multi-sectoral approach because it is a very complex crime. It is very well organized, a very well organized crime now. Before it wasn't that organized. Now you have, especially in the scam hubs, you have very much organized crime happening in these scam hubs where labor trafficking and debt bondage is occurring. And this multi-sectoral approach should involve the community, social services, and the justice sector. When we say the justice sector, that is law enforcement, prosecution, and judiciary. Oftentimes, community and social services are provided by NGOs. And in the law, NGOs have to be members at the national, regional, and local levels of these interagency councils against trafficking. So you have multi-sectoral and multi-level bodies. So the goal of our program is to strengthen local systems and partnerships for more effective and sustainable counter-trafficking in persons. So that's the whole gamut of prevention, protection, prosecution, and cutting across that is partnership. But this is from the duty bearers and stakeholders perspective. From the victim survivor's point of view, there is a need for reporting, rescue, recovery, and reintegration. So if you have 4 Ps from the stakeholders and duty bearers' point of view, we see 4 Rs from the point of view of the victim survivor. This is what they need. They need to be able to report, they need to be rescued, they need to recover, and they need to undergo reintegration into society and to productive livelihoods. Therefore, our project and its local partners create local systems of reporting, prevention, protection, prosecution, recovery, and reintegration as embodied in ordinances and partnership agreements. If you have an ordinance in the local government here, that means you have people and resources assigned to focus on fighting trafficking at the village level. And we can have we have partnership agreements also with the private sector, as we'll show later. So our whole strategy is multi-stakeholder and multi-level, together in partnership to counter trafficking in persons, or TIP to CTIP. And our organization, PDAP, partners and develops partnerships between and among the key actors in counter trafficking in persons: national government, local governments, civil society organizations, and the private sector. This is what our partners are doing. One of our partners is doing. It is in the community level, the barangay or the village level. For example, in Iloilo City, community watch groups were set up by our partner Bidlisio, covering 21 barangays with a total population of 130,000. This is a copy of their ordinance for the barangay level, and the barangay itself, the village, allocates an amount of money, as well as organizes community watch groups made up of volunteers as well as local officials to report cases of human trafficking and to provide support, especially to victims. And they have assemblies of these villages, these community watch groups annually. In Cebu, our partners also worked, or they always gather on the World Day Against Trafficking. And you see there below, that's a peer support group composed of students in private schools who are very active in prevention and providing also support for trafficking victims. You have the government and non-NGO sectors and the law enforcement participating in these multi-sectoral activities, especially in the World Day Against Trafficking. This is in Iloilo City, another major city. We also have, as I mentioned, the partnerships with the private sector. And these are just photos from our visits, our interactions with the companies who hire victim survivors of human trafficking. Last World Day Against Trafficking, we partnered with the largest remittance company in the country. That's GCash. They have 94 million users, and they came out with this visual that appeared in many of their users' screens, which landed in this web page, which when you click, you can reach all of the agencies that are involved in addressing issues on human trafficking, or for rescue, for recovery, for other services that may be needed. And they had very simple videos on OSAEC, on labor trafficking, that those who click this visual can easily access. And just on that day, there were 23,000 visitors, and more than that in terms of sessions, in terms of actually clicking the links in that single web page. More recently, another of our partners, Atikha, they worked with victims, fishermen victims of trafficking in the high seas, and after their rescue and their reintegration and their provision, then the provision of livelihood opportunities, they work themselves as members of community watch groups focusing on migrants, and they worked with the one in the center is the chair of our Interagency Council Against Trafficking, and this is from I think the Philippine Coast Guard, and the two on the left and the right, the extreme left and the extreme right, are actually victim survivors of trafficking in fisheries, and they were part of this technical working group for this event of the Interagency Council Against Trafficking. In terms of good practices, as I said earlier, multi-sectoral and multi-level partnerships, especially at the local level, are so important. We need a whole of society approach to address this societal problem. And even if we do multi-sectoral approaches, we need some specialization and focus. Peer support groups, from the experience of our partners, are more effective. So the youth are more credible, they are more listened to by potential victim survivors. If you're an old guy, you have less credibility, unfortunately, when you're talking to the young potential victims of OSAEC or of sex trafficking or labor trafficking. So you need peer support groups. Secondly, and finally, empowered and protected victim survivors have greater chances of winning their cases, of attaining justice. No? That's what the Department of Justice here has shared. I'm now in another region in the country, that if they protect the victim survivors of trafficking in witness protection programs, there is a higher likelihood that the cases will succeed or will end in conviction of the trafficker. So expert, focused, and specialized protection leads to better prosecution. And you need focused, multi-sectoral support for that prosecution. So quality more than quantity of sectors is important. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sir Eugene, for that presentation, for giving us the good example on how a stakeholder approach should be when it comes to the fight against human trafficking. Now, everyone, if you have questions to Sir Eugene, you may type it in the chat box. And then now I'll introduce our third speaker. Then after our third speaker's presentation, then we can have a Q&A portion where you can ask your question live or you can ask your question via the chat box. So again, let's go back to our presentation. So our third speaker is definitely not the least. She serves as a volunteer lawyer, as a legal officer of Balaod Mindanao Incorporated, and currently a JEDC specialist of an INGO with focus area in Asia Pacific. Previously, Attorney K worked as a chief gender and development specialist and headed the pilot field province office of the Philippine Commission on Women, covering 3 regions in the Philippines. While working as a legal professional and a certified member of the pool of gender and development resource persons, she regularly conducts gender-related trainings with emphasis on gender mainstreaming and GAD budgeting, and she also conducts lectures on laws for the protection of women and children. For the past 15 years, she has also been involved in handling and or monitoring gender-based violence and human trafficking cases, policy development, providing legal support and empowerment to victim survivors of gender-based violence, including joining rescue operations for trafficked women and girls. She will share about available legal remedies to victims and survivors in the landscape of modern slavery and human trafficking in the Philippines. Attorney Kay, the floor is yours.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Good day and good evening to our participants coming from different time zones. So let me share my presentation. So I hope it's now visible. Okay. Just so, can you see that?
Yes, attorney.
Okay. Yes. I'll be sharing to you the legal remedies available for human trafficking victim survivors in the Philippine context. So the previous speakers already shared, the most common or the more vulnerable sector when it comes to human trafficking. I'm talking about the children, and also how important the multi-sectoral or multi-stakeholders participation in addressing human trafficking. So we know that human trafficking remains a critical issue in the Philippines, affecting thousands of and even millions of individuals annually. In the as you've heard a while ago, we are talking about millions already when we talk about human trafficking victims here in the Philippines. And because of that, of course, we have several laws, policies governing human trafficking cases. And the first law that was enacted was actually in 2003. This was Republic Act 9208, to say the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act. But and it was later on expanded by the year 2012. Another law was passed. It's actually the expanded version, which is the Expanded Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act of 2012. And with the advent of technology, before, as what Sir Eugene shared a while ago, the human trafficking before requires physical transfer from one place to another of a person, of a victim. Now, regardless of there is a physical transfer, it now includes online trafficking, and hence there's another law that will address that act, and this is the Republic Act 11862, or the Expanded Anti-Trafficking in Persons of 2022, or include human trafficking through online. And of course, I'd like to highlight also, this was mentioned a while ago by Sir Eugene, Republic Act number 11930, or the Anti-Online Sexual Abuse or Exploitation of Children, and the Anti-Child Sexual Abuse or Exploitation Materials Act of 2022. So these are the recent laws in the Philippines hoping to address human trafficking cases. Okay, so As we all know, that human trafficking involves illegal trade of individuals for various forms of exploitation. So it's always for exploitation, and one of the common exploitative form of human trafficking is the sexual exploitation. And also we have the forced labor and the child trafficking. And understanding the scope of this issue is very essential for developing effective legal remedies. So we have several legal remedies, but just to refresh, these are the elements of human trafficking insofar as the Philippine law is concerned. So we have the acts, which includes what the human traffickers do. So there's recruitment, and then the other one is means. So it could be non-violent means through fraud, deceit, abuse of position, and also through violent means. So it could be through threat, force, abduction. And of course, the purpose is always for exploitation. So with that, there are available several legal remedies. First, of course, is the criminal liabilities of the perpetrators. So you can see here, there's a picture. I don't know if you know this person. This is Peter Scully. He was sentenced to life imprisonment because of human trafficking, among other cases, of course. So the penalties or the criminal liabilities as part of the legal remedies could be imprisonment and fine, as well as the civil damages. Okay, so for acts of trafficking, the law of the Philippine context imposes 20 years for acts of trafficking and fine ranging from 1 million to 2 million pesos. And for acts promoting trafficking, the imposable penalty is 15 years of imprisonment and fine between 500,000 to 1 million pesos. But if it is qualified trafficking, then the imposable penalty is life imprisonment. It's qualified if the victim is a minor or a child, or if there's death. Okay, so these are the instances where human trafficking is qualified. Okay, so now, other than the imprisonment as a form of legal remedy, as a prosecution of cases as a form of legal remedy, there's also what we call enhanced protection, of course, as one of the remedies afforded to the victim survivors. So we have the enhanced protection for the victim survivors through provision of mandatory services to victims. For instance, the legal assistance or services, which is actively handled by the prosecutors. And in my experience, when it comes to human trafficking cases, they seldomly allow private prosecutors. It's actually the public prosecutors that will actively handle the case. And another mandatory service is the provision of medical services, and of course the psychosocial services or the counseling. So aside from that, another protection that is mandated by law is the provision of shelter and appropriate housing. So as what mentioned and shared by the previous speakers, that a lot of the victims of human trafficking, special children, it's sad to say that some of the perpetrators, or a very significant percentage of the perpetrators, are actually the parents. So it would be very important as well to provide shelter. Another one is educational services, considering the number of minor victim survivors of trafficking, as well as the skills enhancement training services, assistance in accessing judicial services. Aside from the provision in terms of prosecuting the cases, of course, the incidental expenses, there are also government agencies that provides support in terms of that. And then the government programs on recovery and reintegration. So we have livelihood training and opportunities, economic reintegration services, overseas Filipino resource centers. As mentioned a while ago, that there's a significant number of overseas Filipino workers. So there are available overseas Filipino resource centers in other countries attached to the embassy. And I also highlighted the enhanced law enforcement training. This is to afford continuous education, capacity building among law enforcement officers in handling human trafficking cases. Next is the expanded definition. This is one of the protection afforded by our legal policies, the laws. It ensures penalties that are commensurate with the severity of the crime, and the expanded definition of trafficking to include, of course, the various forms of exploitation, especially online trafficking. Okay, but aside from the mandatory services that should be afforded, that should be provided by the government agencies, there's also duties and responsibilities of private sector that play significant role in addressing or even possible participation in human trafficking activities. We have internet intermediaries. They are also accountable if they knowingly allow their platforms to be used for trafficking activities, as well as the financial intermediaries such as banks, credit card companies, and money transfer or remittance centers. So as shown by Sir Eugene a while ago, the GCash. So they have been playing, no, or sharing significant efforts in addressing human trafficking. But these platforms can also be used by human traffickers. So they can also be held accountable if they knowingly or through gross negligence allow their services or platforms or applications to be used for promoting trafficking in persons. So these includes, of course, failing to monitor transactions that may be linked to trafficking activities. So I would like to highlight the laws on accountability of this sector. So accountability for negligence, the regulatory compliance with the anti-money laundering measures, reporting obligations to Anti-Money Laundering Council or even the Anti-Cybercrime Unit, collaboration with law enforcement agencies and other concerned government agencies. Consequences for non-compliance of this also entails penalties, including fines and other sanctions that may affect their business operations. So that's why my present NGO right now is also working with banks, microfinance institutions, and other in the financial sector, because they can also help out in preventing, in tracking down transactions involving possible human trafficking. Okay, another one is confidentiality. It is also one of the remedies afforded and or provided under the laws, is the guarantee to confidentiality. And this confidentiality should be at any stage of the investigation, rescue, prosecution, and trial. However, this confidentiality only protects the victim survivors. This does not include, of course, the accused or perpetrators. And then, of course, the institutional mechanism. So to address human trafficking, it requires a village as well. So there is an Interagency Council Against Trafficking, or IACA. This is primarily composed of members from Department of Justice, Department of Social Welfare and Development, Bureau of Immigration, the Philippine National Police, among others. So including CSOs or even NGOs. And the responsibility of this institutional mechanism or council is to coordinate anti-trafficking efforts, implementing policies, monitoring trafficking cases, ensuring effective victim support services. So that would be all. So I only have 15 minutes. So yes, thank you so much. Back to you, Romsey.
Thank you, Attorney Kay, for your presentation. That was good, considering that all the presentations of our previous speakers were on the situations, and then you've given us an overview on what our victims, could avail, based on what's available for them. And I think it's not similar to other countries, so it's good, provided that the direction now is to really put focus to our victims and survivors. So again, thank you so much, Attorney Kay, and thank you to our previous two speakers. And now we are in the Q&A portion for this webinar. So you may raise your hand if you want to ask a question. And I think so far we have here 2 or 3 questions given in the chat box. But before I entertain these questions, and as your host, allow me to ask this question first. No, the main reason is one, I think there are two. I'm not sure if they are here. I got 2 emails regarding this webinar, and they have asked if online scam, which is a big issue or problem in the region, including the Philippines, they're asking about the situation if it will be covered. So I think to give light to that topic, may I ask one of our speakers or any of our speakers, or maybe Sir Eugene, if Sir Eugene, can you give an overview of what the online scam center situation here in the Philippines? Just to
Can,
respond to that email, hopefully that person is here in the room. Yes, Sir Eugene, can
can,
you give us like an
yeah,
overview of
can I
what's
answer that later?
the
I
situation?
look for my PowerPoint, just 2 slides to answer that. If
Oh,
there's
okay,
another question now, please try to respond to that. But I'll get back to you with the slides. Just two
sure,
slides.
sure.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir. Yes, sir. So we have here Edwin raising his hand, but before that, Edwin, may I just go first to Tracy, who asked particularly to Doc Marcy, who gives a go ahead or evaluates how children decide on either reporting their perpetrators or not. Doc
Okay,
Mars?
thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. Actually, there is no such thing as no single go ahead. Based on our experiences, we always ask our survivors if they decide to file a case. Usually, when they are referred to the shelter, we give them a sort of space. We don't immediately encourage them you file a case. Unlike our partners, of course, for the law enforcer, I completely understand. Because the moment they rescued them, definitely they immediately wanted to file a case. But for us in the shelter and being a social worker by profession, of course we want to convict, we want to really give justice, but then what we want really is to address first, okay, the need of the child. And what is that? To provide them a safe space, to provide them space literally and not literally, a space to breathe, so that they are being traumatized, so we have to give them chance. And then again, in other cases, children themselves decided to file a case. We have a lot of cases, even though the mother was already bribed by the perpetrator, the relatives of the perpetrators. The mother mentioned that I'm not going to sell my daughter. And same thing with the child also. However, on the cases of Osaek, correct me if I'm wrong, attorney, no? On the Osaek, usually upon rescue operation or entrapment, there are evidences. Definitely the case will be filed. So we have cases now. The youngest child that we have is 3 years old, being traffic o saik, no, being abused, exploited by his own uncle, her own uncle. So we cannot even ask the child, are you willing to file a case? Because we know in our culture in the Philippines, relationship is very important. And children don't realize, not don't know, they don't realize that what is being done to them is already exploitative or they're being
Correct.
abused. And even our psych 17 years old is an LGBTQ plus, meaning for him, he was not exploited, abused by his own brother, who is also a member of LGBTQ plus, but is already behind bar. For him, no, nothing. It's normal. I want to help. But there are evidences and we need to explain to them. So it's on a case-to-case basis. Always for us is uh, we always look into the best interest of the child. So others complain, others, sometimes it's the family, sometimes it's our partner organization and barangays. I hope I was able to answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc Marcy, for answering that question. Edwin Mugabila, you were raising your hand earlier, sir. You're
Thank you.
acknowledged.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramsey. I congratulate both presenters for the excellent presentations. They were so informative on pertinent issues of trafficking. I have a follow-up question to Christine on the last presentation. I see most of the interventions that you have there correlate in one way or another with the initiatives that we have here in Tanzania. And of more interest, I see in the legal framework, the penalties, the remedies are almost similar with what we have here in Tanzania. I am interested to know, when you were presenting about the legal remedies for human trafficking, I don't know if it passed my ear because sometime my network cut me off when you were presenting. I'm interested to know if your law exonerates victims from any potential criminalization for crimes they committed when they are victims of trafficking. For instance, here in Tanzania, one of the things that we have been fighting against is the situations where victims of sex trafficking are arraigned and prosecuted for prostitution-related crimes. But also you find situations where young men are recruited to be used in other criminalities like drugs trafficking, used as soldiers in perpetrating crimes in those extremist groups. What is the position? Do you have the principle of non-criminalization, or sometimes you face the same challenges as those we have here in Tanzania?
Well, I'm sorry if there was a portion where it was laggy, but I hope I got it right. You were saying that some of the people or victims involved in human trafficking are also being held liable for other cases, such as drug trafficking. Is that what you were saying? And in that instance, these people were exonerated from other criminal liabilities. Is that, did I get it right?
Okay, let me rephrase it with a few words.
Okay.
In our jurisdiction, sometimes victims of trafficking crimes are prosecuted for the crimes they committed when they were victims.
Okay.
Crimes such as prostitution, drugs trafficking, their involvement in criminal schemes like joining the extremist groups and being involved in sharing of petrol stations and all that. We have had those incidents a few years ago. Now I'm interested to know, with the case of Philippines, we know we have, under the Palermo Protocol, we have the principle of non-criminalization and non-punishment of TIP victims for the crimes they committed with their status as victims. What is the experience in your jurisdiction?
Yes, it's quite similar here. If you can really prove that you are a victim of human trafficking, then of course you cannot be held liable. For instance, you were engaged in drug trafficking as a result or as a consequence of you being a victim of human trafficking. Okay, but yeah, that has to be proven, of course. But it's different when you are a minor victim survivor. Even if you have been engaged in drug trafficking, in other crimes, so to say, but you do not have a criminal liability in that instance, because you are being treated as a victim. And you know when you are a victim of human trafficking, that's not your own free will of doing that criminal act. So the same also applies here in the Philippines.
Oh, thank you so much. One last question.
Okay, one last question, Edwin. Then we'll go to Sir Eugene. Okay.
Thank you so
Let's do
much.
it quickly.
Okay, who assigns victim status to the assumed victim of trafficking? Who says that this is a victim of trafficking before even going through judicial processes, going to court and all that? Who says this is a victim of trafficking?
Well, any person can claim he or she is a victim of human trafficking. And it's what is very important is that all elements of human trafficking must be present for you to be considered under the law as a victim of human trafficking. So there has been an offer, there has been recruitment, and means, but the means is not material when it comes to minor victims. Yeah. And of course, the purpose. It's very important that the purpose is for exploitation. If that elements are present, then you will be considered as a victim by the prosecuting team, of course, and even yourself. If you really consider yourself as a victim, and then in fact, this is a public crime. So not necessarily that the victim herself or himself will file the case. And the state also has the obligation as the parents of the state to protect its people. So the parents patriae doctrine. So like for instance, minor victim survivors do not understand as what Doc Marcy said a while ago. So the state through the law enforcement agency, anybody who is a the personal knowledge of the human trafficking acts can file a case.
For instance, in our case, for anyone to be taken as a victim of trafficking, there must be confirmation by the social welfare officer, because otherwise.
Yeah, I understand, Sir Edwin. I understand Edwin's question, Attorney K, and to everyone here in the room, because there are countries, also here in Southeast Asia, there are countries that there has to be a certain government body that would declare that you are a human trafficking victim. So I think that's why Edwin is asking such a question. So Attorney K, you're saying that it's here in the Philippines, anyone can declare that I am a human trafficking victim. Because let's say for in Vietnam, I think we have colleagues here from Vietnam. There's what's this one? There's an agency that will declare that yes, you are a human trafficking victim. Then that's the government services can be availed by the victims. I think that's also the same case for Tanzania, Sir Edwin.
Yeah, sure.
So I hope that clarifies your question.
Yeah, thank you for that experience.
Thank you, Edwin. Now, may I give the floor to Sir Eugene to respond to a question about the scam center status here in the Philippines. So a quick presentation, I think 2 pages. Sir Eugene. Sir, you're muted. You're muted, sir.
Sorry, this might be 4 slides. Can you see this starting slide already, the overview?
Yes.
Okay. So, wait, it doesn't want to follow me. Okay, so this is the modus of what happens from recruitment. They use the recruiters for scam hubs use social media and family and friends, and usually they recruit for call center agents or customer service representative jobs. That's usually the advertising in social media. No contract and no visa required, so very easy. They sometimes they don't even need a ticket. Everything is going to be provided by the trafficker. So here, after recruitment, they're transported, and as I mentioned, all costs are paid for by the trafficker. And there are usually, and this is particularly referring to a case in Thailand, there are escorts in our immigration and in Thai immigration who facilitate, who expedite the travel of the trafficking victim. And according to those that we interviewed in Thailand, they even go through official police checkpoints. No, this is from Bangkok to Mae Sot. They land in Bangkok, and Mae Sot is near the boundary with Myanmar. So they pass through those Thai police checkpoints just to make sure that they're on their way. No? So obviously, it's a monitoring of their movement, but there is also that great possibility that the Thai police are involved in the scheme. And then they cross a river to Myanmar. This is the case that the case, so many cases from the Philippines are like this. Cambodia is another hub. Or it is now the remaining big center of scam hubs in Southeast Asia because Myanmar is just falling apart. Then they do their scamming. They have a playbook, a manual, like a corporate manual, very detailed on how to scam, and they're subjected to physical and mental abuse if they're not able to meet their quotas. Locals, in this case, Myanmar people from Myanmar, are not as abused. They are abused maybe verbally, but not physically. But the Thai, the Filipinos, the Chinese, and the Vietnamese scam hub, the trafficked victims are really physically abused. And you see that picture there. That's a minor injury for compared to the other injuries that they go through. And when they try to escape or tell their bosses, their scam hub bosses, that they want to go back, no, they so you see they're working and they're meeting their quota, but they want to go back to their country. Like for example, the Philippines, no, they have to pay back all the expenses of the scam hub boss to bring them there as a ransom. So you just can't quit. You have to pay a ransom. You have to reimburse them from all of their expenses, and that ransom is paid through cryptocurrency, so it's very hard to trace. Sometimes this ransom goes up to millions of pesos, at least 600,000 pesos. I don't know what is in dollars, about $6,000, but it can be higher. It can be higher. And finally, after, if they succeed in paying that ransom, they are told to surrender to the Thai police. So they're actually imprisoned for being illegal immigrants now or illegal migrants in Thailand or in some other country, for example, Cambodia. And they suffer in detention and pay extortion to the police, to the immigration police, before the Philippine embassy in this case was able to finally rescue them and send them back to the country. So, as I said before, no, if before it was face-to-face using paper money, now it's really minimal face-to-face contact, use of cryptocurrency, and the clients of these forced labor these scammers, these traffic scammers, are also victims. So you have two types of victims. Before, no, the client was not a victim. Now, the clients are also victims because they are scammed for their money, again, using cryptocurrency. So more recently in the country, well, they're called POGOs, no, Philippine Offshore Gaming Operators. And finally, they were banned, and they are all of the foreigners who are working in these offshore gaming operators have to leave our country by the end of this year. The ban was implemented a few months ago, and you have uh, tens of thousands of mostly Chinese having to go back to the mainland because these scam hubs being operated in our country were banned and have to be closed. The problem now is those who are working here and the bosses, they have gone small scale, so smaller scale scam hubs going to more remote areas in our country. But then again, law enforcement is catching up on them. So that's the situation here now. Fortunately, there is a ban, but there are still thousands of them remaining and going on a guerrilla type of scam hub. So that's the situation now. Hopefully, they can succeed in completely closing down these scam hubs here. The problem is the scam hubs still operate in Myanmar, and especially in Cambodia. And that's where a lot of things still have to happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sir Eugene, for that wonderful presentation. Sir Eugene, just a quick input also as well to your presentation. When I joined the Regional Valley Process meeting here in Manila, they even said that there's an observation that those who were operating POGOs are now converting it to another entity for the reason that they really want to stay here in the Philippines. Because there are confirmations that those who were what's this one sent back to China, and then they're involved in the POGO operations are being, killed, sanctioned by the government because it's really illegal. So I guess that ends the Q&A portion of our webinar right now. So thank you so much, Doc Marcy, Sir Eugene, and Attorney Kay for your presentations. And I think it would be okay for our three speakers today that I will share your emails to our participants so that in case they have questions, then they can continue discussing it with you. Okay, so thank you. And now let me welcome our partner who made this event possible and the fact sheet that we have created possible. Mr. Ritzley Santos III, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Romsey. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us in today's discussion on a pressing issue that affects countless lives: human trafficking and modern slavery in the Philippines. Balaod, Mindanao, and Crida slaves have developed a fact sheet that we believe may further inform the public about the human trafficking situation in the Philippines. This fact sheet is a two-page document that shares the gravity of human trafficking in the Philippines, 8 snippets of various forms of modern slavery related to local legislations and laws and recommendations. Allow me to give you the overview of this document. Despite significant progress in anti-trafficking efforts, modern slavery continues to impact an estimated 859,000 individuals in our country. Vulnerable groups like migrants, children, women, and others face exploitation in forced labor, sex trafficking, online abuse, and hazardous industries. While the Philippines has retained its Tier 1 status in the 2024 Trafficking in Persons report, systematic challenges and inadequacies hinder our ability to eradicate these injustices fully. Modern slavery includes forced labor, human trafficking, forced marriage, and other forms of exploitation. Globally, millions are trapped in such circumstances. Here in the Philippines, the 2023 Global Slavery Index reports that 859,000 people live in exploitative situations. Vulnerable groups such as migrants, children, women and girls, minority groups, and people with disabilities are at heightened risk, and they are counting on our efforts to act. The progress we've made, including the advancements in investigations, prosecutions, and survivor consultations, is commendable. However, corruption, insufficient victim screening, and systematic vulnerabilities remain significant hurdles. Let's dive deeper into the different forms of modern slavery prevalent in the Philippines. Some of the highlights on various forms of trafficking in the Philippines are the following. Number one, forced labor. Exploitation is a harsh reality in industries such as industrial fishing, construction, manufacturing, and domestic work. Migrant workers, who make up a significant portion of the 10 million Filipinos working abroad, face exploitation both locally and overseas. Just last year, 47 labor traffickers were prosecuted. An encouraging sign, but much more remains to be done. Number two, sex trafficking. Tourist hubs like Boracay, Angeles City, and Puerto Galera are hotspots for sex trafficking, with victims lured by false promises of work. Additionally, climate disasters increase vulnerabilities, pushing many into exploitative situations. In 2023 alone, 545 victims of sex trafficking, including women, men, and children, were assisted by authorities. Number three, online child sexual exploitation and abuse. The Philippines is sadly a global hotspot for OXEA or some um, online sex OSAE. Children are often coerced by trusted family members into live streaming abuse, with 90% of cases occurring on platforms like Facebook. The pandemic exacerbated this crisis, driven by increased internet usage and economic instability. Number four, child labor and trafficking. An estimated 50,000 Filipino children work as domestic laborers under exploitative conditions. Hazardous industries like agriculture, mining, and scavenging also rely on child labor. Alarmingly, many children are trafficked for sexual exploitation. Number five, scam operations in POGOs. Tied to Philippine offshore gaming operators or POGOs, scam centers exploit workers by coercing them into fraudulent activities. In June of 2023, over 1,000 victims were rescued, with 185 identified as trafficking victims. Number six, exploitation of overseas Filipino workers. Each year, 2.3 million contracts are processed for Filipinos seeking work abroad. While these opportunities are vital, many OFWs face exploitation, including withheld passports and restricted freedoms. In 2023, the Department of Foreign Affairs assisted 431 victims, while the Department of Migrant Workers supported 163 trafficking cases. Now, moving forward, here are the recommendations that we strongly think that will advance the fight of human trafficking in the Philippines. Combating modern slavery in the Philippines requires focused, sustained action across multiple levels. We need comprehensive support for survivors. Survivors need access to healthcare, counseling, education, and vocational training to rebuild their lives and reintegrate into society. Specialized training for law enforcement. Law enforcement must be equipped to identify and respond effectively to trafficking cases, ensuring that no victim slips through the cracks. This training must also inform law enforcement with the approaches on victim-centered and trauma-informed care approach. Centralized data systems. Secure databases are essential to track cases and improve coordination between agencies, ensuring a seamless response. Then community engagement. Local leaders play a critical role in raising awareness and mobilizing communities to prevent trafficking at its roots. Survivor-led programs. Survivors' voices must shape our anti-trafficking efforts. Funding survivor-led initiatives empowers those most affected to create meaningful change. Proactive identification of labor trafficking victims. Outreach programs in vulnerable industries are crucial to providing immediate assistance to those in need. Together, these strategies can build a future where exploitation is not just reduced but eliminated. The Philippines has made commendable strides in addressing modern slavery. However, significant challenges remain. By empowering survivors, dismantling trafficking networks, and strengthening community resilience, we can lead efforts to eradicate these injustices. I am very thankful to our speakers and to their participation in today's event that has led to more discussions and knowledge sharing among all of us. As a gratitude to your participation, we will all share with you a PDF copy of the fact sheet. Please share this to anyone who you believe will benefit in understanding the human trafficking situation in the Philippines. You can also access this in the link provided in the chat box. And once again, good afternoon from my side of the world, and I hope you enjoyed our session today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ritzley, for helping us develop this fact sheet. I mean, this is a very good resource to everyone who'd like to understand the modern slavery situation in the Philippines. So we are ending this event on the exact time, 3:30, 1.5 hour event, and I think it was very fruitful discussion. So again, thank you so much to everyone who have joined us here in making this event possible. And please continue interacting with us. Please reach out to us, Free the Slaves and Balaod Mindanao. And also we have our partners from KKI and PDAP. And we hope to see you more in our upcoming events. Once again, good afternoon. And
Romsi,
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. There's a query in the chat box. Francisco says, can we upload it to our website?
Yes, sure. Sure,
Yeah.
sir. Okay, thank you so much. Once again, everybody, you will receive a copy, a PDF file of these fact sheet, and you can share it, you can upload it. And again, this was made possible because of the help of Balaod Mindanao. Thank you and have a blessed day. Goodbye, everyone.
So much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.